woke up to outrage from people from all over Central America, all kinds of countries. Why? Because the Cubans just got singled out by the Trump administration. Why? Almost 50,000 of them claimed asylum, came here from Cuba because they said their lives were in danger in Cuba. So they claimed asylum. Cuba has special laws in place with America. So after you've been here for 1 year, you get a permanent resident card. You don't have to go through a bunch of hoops to get it. You get it really quick. Problem is, their data is completely tracked. And you know what they all did? They all went home. They all went back to, after they got their permanent resident card, they all flew back to Cuba to visit mom, dad, Theo, grandpa, everybody. And it's all been tracked. And that's why these 50,000 people almost from Cuba have just put the radar on the fact that people are coming here, claiming asylum, and then flying back to their country. And this is what angers so many people from other countries, because they know now that this data has been released, that all their trips have been tracked and they've gone back to their countries. And the huge spotlight that has just been put on people with permanent resident cards that claimed asylum but went back to their homes. And they're saying, why couldn't you just do it right? Why couldn't you just not go? Some of us did it right. Some of us came here, enjoy the freedoms America gives us. And we've had grandparents pass, we've had parents, sisters, brothers in our country pass, and we don't go back because we won't risk what we have here in America. And the people in our country understand that. We were fortunate to get here, and we're going to try our best to stay here. But they're afraid that that's putting a huge spotlight on the whole asylum thing. And will it happen to other countries? Will they get the spotlight put on them too? Because some of their people are doing the same thing the Cubans just got caught for.
How are my fellow Americans feeling, especially to my Cuban compadres, about our president Elon Musk and, First Lady Daddy Trump? Because you guys have been extremely quiet. So ever since now, Cubans have been granted asylum and refugee status in this country. And to those who have been granted that, they took their time, went back, and looked and saw anybody who went back to Cuba to visit, I guess on vacation or to help their family or something. They are now being revoked their asylum status. Why? Because the administration is claiming that if on your asylum status you are stating that you're seeking asylum because the country that you're coming from, you are scared from your life, and that if you were to stay there, that you would die. Therefore, they are saying that if you went back during at any point in time while you were granted this asylum, then obviously it was not that bad if you felt safe enough to go back. This is a plot twist. How the Cubans doing? You're real silent.
Just ordered the deportation of 500,000 Cuban, Venezuelan, and Haitian immigrants that came here the right way. And my question for my fellow Cubans is, are y'all still feeling special? My entire childhood was spent being fed the narrative that our family came here the right way, and that everybody else that's complaining about being deported, well, they just need to go back to where they came from, start the process over legally. I don't want to ever hear another Cuban American say some shit like that ever again. I'm going to laugh in your face. Maybe you all will finally realize that no matter how much you try to blend into white Western European culture, no matter how much you try to pretend that you don't eat ham croquettes for breakfast and that you've never had ajiaco for dinner in your entire life, the problem is that Donald Trump is never going to see you as human. It's always been about racism. Here's the part that we like to talk about in our homes when no one else is listening, but I'm going to go ahead and say the quiet part out loud. You all think that you are better than every other type of Latino American. Conservative Cuban Americans, MAGA Cuban Americans, think that you are better than every other flavor of Latino American. And now we have proof. You are no different. We are no better than anybody else. No matter how many times you place your vote for Donald Trump and the Republican Party, they are still going to see you as subhuman. And even if you hang your hat on the fact that you came here the right way, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter to him, because if he wants you gone, he's going to find a way to disappear you.
We have some breaking news. The Department of Homeland Security will be revoking TPS status, temporary protective status, for over 530,000 Venezuelans, Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Haitians. Now, what makes this interesting is that Venezuelans, Cubans, and Nicaraguan Americans voted for Trump by over 50%, and now their own family members in their own community is getting deported, even though TPS is a legal status in this country. If you have TPS, you are able to work and live here. Now, these individuals that the Trump administration is going to be deporting have been in the U.S. since October of 2022. We're not sure exactly when their departure date will be, but I will keep you updated. Like and follow for more, and comment below your thoughts.
There have been 425,000 Cubans that have migrated to the United States in the past 2 years. Cubans crossing the border have faced inconsistencies in being processed, which has led to a lot of them being placed into removal proceedings, but not being eligible to apply for their residency through the Cuban Adjustment Act. Depending upon which port you enter, which Border Patrol agent you encounter, and what time of day it is, as a Cuban, you can either be processed as somebody who enters paroled or somebody who's coming under an I-220A, release under their own recognizance. There are also Cubans that are being detained and having to go through the entire asylum and removal proceedings while being detained. Recently, the Board of Immigration Appeals declined to identify the I-220A as evidence of parole, making them ineligible to get their green card through the Cuban Adjustment Act. This has left hundreds of thousands of Cubans having to claim asylum from returning back to Cuba. While Cuba is a communist country, it is not easy to apply for asylum. We're hoping that the administration takes a stand on this and some type of policy comes out, so at least we can give paroles to these Cubans and they'll be eligible to apply for their adjustment of status and get their process going.
As of yesterday, ICE has resumed deportations to the country of Cuba. After a 2-year hiatus, 123 Cubans have been deported back to their country. 83 out of the 123 had presented themselves along the U.S.-Mexican border and were deported, and the other 40 migrants were intercepted at sea. ICE is expecting a surge of migrants crossing into the U.S. and Texas border as soon as the Title 42 ban is lifted, which is scheduled to happen on May 11th, 2023.
Almost 50,000 Cubans from the Miami area in Florida are facing deportations.
I will vote for Donald Trump. I will vote. Raise your hands, come on. For Donald Trump.
As you may have heard, many Cubans with permanent residency may now be facing deportation after having returned to Cuba with their permanent residence card. And this is because when you file for asylum and you are granted asylum, and many of these individuals obtain their permanent residency after seeking asylum successfully, they are essentially saying that they're scared to return to their home country. And so when they did return to Cuba, now they are being flagged for committing fraud. And if in fact you travel back to your home country, whether you're from Cuba or not, if you have asylum granted and you are now a permanent resident, you should be very, very wary of traveling back to your home country and not being placed in secondary inspection when you re-enter the United States. It is obvious that you're going to be flagged, and I've been saying this for many years. You shouldn't even travel back if you are a U.S. citizen and you became a U.S. citizen by way of permanent residency, by way of an asylum granted. At any point, you are subject to a review of that. And if it is determined that you became a U.S. citizen through fraud or a permanent resident through fraud, they can try and place you in removal proceedings to take away your citizenship and or your permanent residency. So let this be a warning for anybody considering returning to your home country after affirmatively and successfully getting asylum in the United States, because this will likely flag immigration and give them a reason to place you in removal proceedings in an attempt to strip you of your status.
Hispanic, and I vote for Mr. Trump. We vote for Mr.
A few moments later. A few moments later.
Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign,
As of yesterday, ICE has resumed deportations to the country of Cuba. After a 2-year hiatus, 123 Cubans have been deported back to their country. 83 out of the 123 had presented themselves along the U.S. and Mexican border and were deported, and the other 40 migrants were intercepted at sea. ICE is expecting a surge of migrants crossing into the U.S. and Texas border as soon as the Title 42 ban is lifted, which is scheduled to happen on May 11th.
Where are my Miami Cubans at? Stand up for what you supported in 2024. Stand up for what you supported. Oh, you thought he wasn't talking about you, right? He wasn't talking about you. He was talking about the illegals. Even though we tried to tell you, if your skin color was brown and you talk Spanish, he wants you out of the country. You thought, oh, he's not talking about me. We tried to warn you. The mass deportations in U.S. history affect communities of color indiscriminately. How do they know if you're undocumented or not? They're going to harass you. So even revoking legal status for 500,000 Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans, how are they going to find out which ones just lost their legal status? Where are they going to find them? They're going to be searching these neighborhoods as they have been already. You know, when I moved from Michigan to Florida, I was young, naive. I didn't know what had happened in 2000, but I was shocked when I learned that Cubans in Miami were Republicans, because coming from Michigan, I knew who the Republicans were, and they couldn't stand the Cubans. And it's like, you're voting for people who can't stand you. They tolerate you because you stay in Miami and you're not venturing out to Iowa. You're not venturing out into the Midwest to realize that the people you're supporting want you out of their country. FAFO. But stand up and own what you supported. Round of applause. Greatness is here. Enjoy it.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.